Hello and welcome to this editor webinar. Thank you for joining us. I'm Charlotte Moore and I'm part of the Learning and Content Management team. I'll be hosting the session today, and joining me are my colleagues Sridevi, Kim and Anita. If you have a question at any time, please use the Q&A option to send your question directly to us, and the team will work to answer your question in the Q&A field in today's session. Please note that we cannot answer any journal-specific questions. For the best view, you may wish to drag the central bar on your screen to the right to enlarge the screen that I am sharing. Our session is being recorded and we'll send you a link to the recording when it's ready. Our topic today is search and select reviewers, and I hope that in the next 30 minutes we can enhance your understanding of this topic. Let's take a look at our agenda for today. Our session will focus on the reviewer selection summary page, and from there we'll look at both internal and external reviewer search options. We'll look at how you can search across the entire journal database, look for a specific person, we'll look at ways you can identify editorial board members, and also how to use classifications to enhance your search. See how the Suggest Reviewer tool works and show you how to manage your display preferences. And once we've conducted our searches, we'll walk through the review invitation sending process. Continuing on the reviewer selection summary page, we'll then look at external search options using the Find Reviewers tool. And this offers us three options: system recommendations, search on Scopus, and an interested reviewers tool. For today's session, I'll be using our training site with dummy users and dummy papers. The training site is a good replica of a live environment, but it will look slightly different to your own profile. So don't worry if you see things on screen today that you don't normally see when you log into your own profile. Let's move to the Editorial Manager site. Okay, you should see the Editorial Manager site on your screen. I'm logged in as an Editor-in-Chief profile, and I'm going to scroll down and pick up a new submission and click on the Invite Reviewers link. And this will take me through to the reviewer selection summary, which is where we want to base our training session, our webinar session today. So you'll be familiar with this page as a place where you come to search and look for reviewers. And under the reviewer search option here, we have two options. Broadly speaking, Search My Publication is searching through your internal database, and Find Reviewers using Scopus is looking outside of your journal database, and that's the external search option that we refer to. And when you're in the system, you'll see that the eye icon links you to a short video guide about both of these tools, so you can watch those when you're in there. We're going to look at both of these options today. I'm going to start with Search My Publication. So this is looking through the journal database, and these drop-down menus offer us different ways to search through the database and different filters that we can apply. And the first one that I want to look at is the editorial board member. So if we search through the database and we have this filter applied, we'll be looking for people who have editorial board member status applied to their profile. Now, it's important to note that there are two different ways you can identify editorial board members. One is by using this type of filter, and people who are returned in this search, they will have had this status applied to their profile either by a journal manager or at the request of an editor or a publisher. The second way is something we'll look at a little bit later, and it's called a people flag, and that could have been applied by an editor in the system. And we'll look at the difference between these two in a moment. The other filter that I want to draw your attention to is entire database. And this effectively removes any filter so that you're looking at all of the profiles in the system. And this is important because you may be looking for someone who is in the system, and when you conduct your search, you can't find them, and you it's confusing as to why that scenario arises. And it could be that they don't yet have a reviewer profile. They have an author profile, but not yet a reviewer profile. And so searching the entire database allows all of those profiles to be seen and will make your search more effective. And as a side note to this, we have had feedback in our previous webinars that this should be the default setting. So we have made a change request for that, and we should see that come into effect. Okay, I'm going to start looking through some of these search options now. I'm going to leave this as search for reviewers, and I'm going to search through the entire database, and I'm going to click go. This is going to start the search process for me, and it's going to take me to a criteria page where you'll see that I have multiple fields and I can search on various different criteria. So if you knew someone and you had their email address, you could type this in here, and ensuring you're searching entire database will make sure that you don't arrive in the scenario that I just described, where you know someone's in the system, but you can't find them for some reason. So searching entire database, email address, or using their name, and you can search for someone specific. I'm going to build up a search now where I'm not looking for someone specific, but I do have several criteria that I would like my potential reviewers to meet. So I'm going to start populating these fields now. I'm going to look for someone with a particular position, and I'm going to search for particular keywords and particular classifications. Don't forget, the difference between keywords and classifications is that keywords are free text and classifications are the set list of the journal that users, reviewers, and authors can select from. And in this search method, we can insert brackets, and you'll notice that I'm using the and or booleans here. I'm going to keep adding some criteria here. So I'm obviously making a very fictional search here, but I hope what I'm demonstrating is that you can really build this up so that although we don't have anyone particular in mind, we're narrowing down our database significantly now. And the last option I'm going to use here is the people flag that I mentioned earlier. And the flag that I want to search on is the editorial board member. And we'll see how that presents in a moment. Okay, and then I'm going to click search, and it's going to show me those results. And when it presents the results, the way it does that will be the same, whatever type of search I'm running. So it's worth familiarizing yourself with this table here that we're seeing now. These are my results. On the right-hand side, we've got some reviewer statistics. So I can quickly see if they've got any reviews in progress, or perhaps the date they last completed a review. So I can see how busy people are, how recently active they are. The middle column gives me the classifications, and that will come into more importance in a moment when we run that type of search. And then the reviewer name column gives me some personal information about these potential reviewers. Their names are a hyperlink, and if I click on that, it opens up their people information card, and this will give me their affiliation details. And it will also give me their review statistics for this journal. And you can see that this person has a lot of review statistics. This is because we're in the test environment. And it will also give me their authorship statistics. So if I scroll right to the bottom, we'll see if they are applicable for this journal, anything that this person has authored as well. So that's learning a lot more about that individual through their people information card. You'll see some red text here, which is alerting me to, in this instance, that this person is already committed to other tasks, other review tasks, but it would also flag up anything like this person has been opposed by the author, or this person is a co-author, any potential conflict of interests. So that red text needs to be noted. And then we can see next to the name here, we have some flags appearing. And in this instance, we have the red B. And if I hold my cursor over the flag, it tells me this person is an editorial board member. And this is the second way that we can identify board members in the system. So the first was by applying the filter to our search, and the second was by searching on the people flag as a criterion, and that's brought back this result. But you can see that the profile of this person is just a reviewer, whereas if I scroll down to this person, their profile has editorial board member status and they have the flag. So you can see how those two work. As a side note, you'll see that there are other flags applied. And as I'm working as an editor now, I could just click on the set flags icon to add or remove flags for this individual. And that's how these red bees arrived on these profiles. And then on the left-hand side, we've got the invite column, which would be sending an invitation to this person immediately. Alternate, which would be selecting them as an alternate, saving them in the system until they're needed, and then proposed. And I'm going to talk a bit more about the proposed list in a moment, but it's basically building up a short list of potential reviewers before you invite them. I'm going to make a couple of selections here, one of each. And then at this point, I'm actually going to scroll back up to the top of this screen. And I can now use this box here to run a different type of search. But the selections that I've just made will be saved. And when I finally have finished my searches and I progress to the, I click proceed and go ahead to the invitation sending stage, all of my selections will have been brought with me as long as I don't navigate away from this page now. So I'm going to switch things up here and I'm going to talk about classification searches now. The first one I'm going to look at is the classification matches. This time, I'm just going to look for reviewers, people who already have a reviewer profile, and I'm going to click go. And this type of search is showing me the classifications that have been selected by the author for this manuscript. And I could choose to select one, several, or all of them. It shows me the number of reviewers associated with those classifications in their profile. And again, it's going to return the results in the same format that we saw earlier. I'm scrolling down and these are my results. And I'm going to make a couple of selections here. I'm going to select one alternate and two proposed. And then I'm going to scroll back up and I'm going to change my search again to personal classifications this time. Click go. And this time, I'm seeing all of the classifications for the journal, whether or not they're associated with this manuscript. So now I can decide that I want to search on some different classifications. I can create my search list here and click search for reviewers. And then when I scroll down and look, we can see that this classification column now is populated with the manuscript classifications and also the personal classifications. And when I'm running these different searches, the way that these results are presented can be changed for your personal profile to your preferred settings. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But from these results, I'm going to add a couple more people to my proposed list. And again, we'll have a look at how that works in a moment. And then I'm going to scroll back up. And I'm going to do one final search here, which is the suggest reviewers search. Now, this is an automated search that the system will run based on certain criteria to give me the best result out of the journal database. And the criteria on which this search runs is editable per editor profile. So you can set this to run how you wish, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But it's basically bringing back the best match from the reviewer database for this manuscript. So I'm going to select that one as a primary invitation. And I'm finished with my searches now. So I'm going to scroll to the very bottom of this screen and click proceed. And this is going to start the invitation sending process. There are a couple of things that I want to look at on this screen. So you can see that it's priming up my invitations here for the primary and the alternates. These will be sent immediately. These will be saved in the system until they're needed. I can customize these invitations, and also clicking on customize is a handy way to preview the email that you're about to send. So if you want to see the text that you're about to send to the reviewer, click on customize. You don't have to make any changes, but you can read the email. Anything in the percentage code is a merge code, so please don't change that, but you can edit and change anything else here. Clicking on Save, confirming that you want to do that, will take us back to the invitation sending page, and this asterisk shows me that I've customized that letter. And I could also change the number of days that they have to review at this point if I wanted to. And you can see my proposed list is also built up here. There aren't any invitations about to be sent for this list. This is just my short list. We'll talk a bit more again about this in a moment. But at this point, if you change your mind about any of these people, instead of having to go back or remove them at a later date, you could just say do not use, and you can do that on any of these options as well. So that's quite handy. But once you're happy, you can click confirm selections and proceed. That's going to send out those primary invitations, save the alternates, and then it's going to show me a confirmation page. And the important thing here is to use this hyperlink, the reviewer selection summary, to loop us back round to where we started today. So we're back here on the reviewer selection summary page for this manuscript. Scrolling down now, I can see my primary reviewers have been invited. My alternate reviewers are saved in the system. These alternate reviewers will be invited in this order. You can drag and drop them using the blue grab icon on the left. You can link them to a primary reviewer. You can use the trash icon to change your mind, and you can promote them manually yourself, but the system will work through that list if any of these reviewers decline or are uninvited. And then we have the proposed list. So as I said, this is building up a short list of potential reviewers, and working through your search options and adding people to your proposed list gives you a chance at this stage to consider aspects of inclusion and diversity. So for instance, you can look at gender, career stage, location, and it will help you to make an informed decision about who you would like to send a primary invitation to and who you would like to designate as an alternate. And once you've decided on that, you can click select, and then you'll be taken through that invitation sending process that we've just seen. There was one final option in our drop-down list here, which was suggested by author. And if I clicked on that and selected go, it would present the results in exactly the same way we've just seen, and I could select them as invited, alternate, or proposed, and proceed through the invitation steps as we've just seen. And as we were looking at those search options, I talked about the display preferences, and those were on the left-hand side here. So for the automated search that I ran, if you want to look at the parameters of that search or change them in any way, click on the My Suggest Reviewer Preferences, and you can see that you can exclude people from the same institution, the same city. You can set certain parameters about how available or busy people are and how many matches they have to the classifications of the manuscript. And then you can set the order in which you want to see those results. So if your journal uses classifications, likely you will have manuscript matches as number one. If you don't use classifications, perhaps you want to see an average review rating, the total number of completed reviews, so someone who's been particularly active, someone who's a board member, and you could just update these numbers. Click Update Order, and then when you click Submit, those settings will save in the system until you next run that search. So that will be saved until you change it for the Suggest Reviewer, the automated search. And then for all the other search types, the My Reviewer Display Preferences on the left-hand side here. If I click on that, that will again open up the parameters of the display, and you can choose how you want the classifications to show. And then again, you can choose the order. Update and Submit will save it for you and your profile, and that will be used whenever you run any of these search types now. Okay, so that was looking at our internal database. We're now going to look at how we can search externally to the journal database, and that's done through the Find Reviewers using Scopus tool. So I'm going to select that one now and click Go. This will open up a new window, and there are now three tools that we're going to look at here. You'll see at the top of the tool that we have the manuscript number and title, and then we have the three options: System Recommendations, Search on Scopus, and Interested Reviewers. System recommendations searches through Scopus to find researchers who have a match with the abstract or keywords of the manuscript that you're looking at. And it creates a large list, and then it filters that list based on connections with your journal, such as review history or authorship history. And it brings back the 100 top results on the left-hand side here, with the top result showing in the middle of the screen. And you can scroll down through these profiles and select the one that you want to look at. When you're scrolling through the information about the individuals, you can view their profile in Scopus. And then scrolling down will give you a lot more information about this person. So their keywords, subject areas. You can see here, if you're used to using this tool, that the review history and activity has been developed. So you can see review activity for this journal and previous, other journals, and the information has been expanded. And we also have flags applied now. So if someone has a review currently underway, you will see that as a flag on their profile, and I'll talk a bit more about these flags in a moment. Continuing to scroll down on this profile, we can see their authorship history and then citations and H-index. So that gives us a lot more information about this particular individual, and if we would like to invite them to review, we can click Add to Manuscript, and we can carry on searching now, and only when we click on Return to Submission on the top right of the screen will those profiles be brought across into Editorial Manager for us. So you'll see that there are flags on the left-hand side here. Things that are informational are in grey, like H-index, similar works. Things in red to be aware of, reviews in progress, for instance, or similar country, those are in red. And then anything that's a promoter would be in blue. So if I scroll down a bit further, we'll see an example of a blue one, which is the recently accepted author flag. Editorial board members have a flag, and suggested by the author will also have a flag. But for this option, the system recommendations, there is a conflict of interest filter already applied, and that will filter out any individuals who have an authorship link with any of the authors of the manuscript in the last 3 years. Another couple of updates on this option here are that any bounce emails, so people where the email has bounced, have been removed, and anyone who's opted out via GDPR will also be removed from these options. Okay, search on Scopus gives us free text here. So this is a more dynamic search. We can type in the keywords here, we can copy from the title, and an update to this is that the suggested keywords from the author are already here, so I can just add them. And the search will automatically perform an AND search, and clicking search would present the results in the same way that it did for system recommendations. The main point to note here is that the conflict of interest filter is not applied. We are expecting that next year in Q1. Okay, and then I'm going to come out of the Find Reviewers. I'm going to switch over to another version of this to show you the Interested Reviewers tab. So this has been in pilot phase, but has been rolled out to the majority of journals now. So you'll see this option available. And the Interested Reviewers tab registered their interest in reviewing with your journal via their profile in the Reviewer Hub. And you'll see that these profiles perhaps don't have the reviewing history that you would expect from established reviewers, and that possibly might be because they're early career researchers. However, we have had a very high acceptance rate from this group, so they're a very motivated group of potential reviewers. Best practice with this group is to only invite 2 from this pool, because we don't want to kind of exhaust these options. And also bear in mind that this is a static list. There isn't a conflict of interest applied here, and you'll need to investigate them a little bit further through the View in Scopus link. But when you find people, again, you can click Add to Manuscript, and then clicking on Return to Submission would take us back to Editorial Manager. Now, when you go back into Editorial Manager, if you've been using the Find Reviewers tool, you'll be presented with 2 options, and I'm just going to share some screenshots with you now. So the first option will be that they have they have a record in your journal database. And so this is what that will look like. It will say we found a match in your journal database, and it will prompt you to use that existing record. And you can use any of the options on the left-hand side there. The other option will be if they haven't got a profile in your database, in which case it will notify you of that, and it will tell you that you're going to perform the proxy registration process. And I'm just going to spend my final minute talking about that process. So via Editorial Manager, whether you are selecting people from the Find Reviewers tool, or if you're perhaps using one of the reviewers suggested by the author and the person is not yet registered in the database, then you'll be taken through the proxy registration process. I'm going to pick it up from scratch here, which is register and select new reviewer. And this link is available in multiple places during the reviewer search option, but it's usually either at the bottom or on the left-hand side. And it would just wants you to enter their email address. So I'm just going to enter a dummy email address here, enter a couple of details about them, and then click register user and send letter. And what you're doing through this process is you're creating a placeholder in the system for them, and that will be there for 7 days. The email that you're about to send now notifies them that that placeholder is there. They need to log in and access their account. Otherwise, it will be deleted in 7 days. So if you don't have any response from them, the placeholder will be deleted. So sending that letter notifies them that you're proxy registering them. And even though they haven't obviously logged into their profile yet, we do create a profile in the system for them, and you can go ahead and you can invite them in the way that you normally would. It's just catching me up here, but it will basically bring us back the record, and we could select the invite, alternate, or proposed in the way that we did before, and only created this placeholder. Okay, so that was proxy registration. And that does bring me back to the end of my slides today. And I'm just going to return to my slides. And share my screen again with you. Okay, that's the end of the content to today's session. I hope you found it useful. I'm going to hand over to Shri now, who's just going to share the top 1 or 2 questions that we've had during the session today. Over to you, Shri.
Thank you, Charlotte. So we've been trying to answer a lot of questions, and also we have some suggestions which we will be taking into we'll be passing on to the development team. I would just like to talk about the top 2 questions we had. So one is about, there was a suggestion that we could divide the alternate reviewers into 2 categories. So if your journal allows you to add proposed reviewers, then what you could do probably is invite a couple of alternate reviewers, and the system also allows you to add few reviewers in the proposed category. So if there is a situation where both main and alternate reviewers decline, then you could scroll down to the proposed reviewer section, select them as main or alternate later, depending on the scenario there. So that was one. And we had a question about how do we know how many reviewers are there in the journal's database. So if you would like to know the number of reviewers in your journal database, then you can contact the journal manager, who could share the list with you along with their classification and keywords list, provided if your journal supports classification. And I think these were the top 2, Charlotte. So we're trying to answer the rest of them in the group.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Shri. I can see we've got some open questions there, so the team are going to be working on the call to answer those in the last couple of minutes of the session. Thank you very much for submitting your questions. I just have a couple more things that I want to share with you now. So still to come, we have some topics running this week that you might be interested in. We have a topic on editorial efficiency running tomorrow. We have a signpost to learning materials running later today and also tomorrow, Friday. We have working with article transfer service. We have 2 sessions coming up, and we also have a training session running for associate editors tomorrow. So if you would still like to sign up, there is time. It's the same place that you went to register for this webinar, but I'm also putting the link in the chat now. So have a look if there are any that interest you, and please do sign up. And then my final slide is asking you to complete a short survey. You can open your phone camera and hold it over the QR code. And any input you have here will really help us to design and run these webinars going forward. So thank you in advance. I'm also going to place the link to the survey in the chat now as well, if you prefer to do it that way. But that does now bring us to the end of our session. We will send you an email after this session that will contain the link to the webinar recording, links to short video guides, links to some full EM training videos, and also our self-help editor guide to Editorial Manager. So please do look out for that email. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time.